From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THL staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does for our Three Things post-game video, our very own publisher Andrew Jones. And AJ just saw the Tar Heels pick up a 94-74 win over Florida State, only a 20-point win. I don't think that even kind of tells the full story of how the game went, because it was a lot wider of a margin of a game than that. And really looking back on it, this game was kind of over by the first Leonard Hamilton timeout, I should say.
It was over by about 2:30.
Which I think was around like the 15-41 mark. Carolina was up 18-0. That's kind of the first thing that I want to talk about. Something in that range.
It was about 220, 225 this game was over.
Yeah, it was over. You know, Carolina jumps out.
I wrote my first part of the 5 takeaways, 18-0, but actually I changed it into something else. So I was actually working on post-game content that early. I mean, I watched the game, guys. Don't worry about that. But you know, it was easy to. It's so easy to layer in a game like this. Also, like when a team plays really bad, really poorly, it's easier to kind of layer your work then too.
Oh, absolutely.
Which the tight games where you have like 600 things and you have to whittle it down. And you know, those are the games where you delete like 6,000 words.
These are kind of.
This one's easier.
That was the word I was looking for. These are easier to cover. Now, first thing I want to talk about is Carolina and how they started the game, jumping out to that 18-0 lead. Ended up 49-15 at one point as well. So Carolina just able. 18-0, 24-1.
24-1, 36-10, 49-15, and halftime was
I don't remember
62-24.
Yeah, 60 points in the first half, which is amazing. But I think it speaks, like I said, the first thing I want to talk about, it speaks to how Carolina started the game. They were ready to play. I know this is an injury-ravaged Florida State team. They showed it. Body language was bad. Really reminded me of the NC State game we saw a couple weekends ago here. Carolina starts off just making everything. Florida State can't hit anything. Florida State's body language goes down very quickly, and they never recover from it. So the way Carolina started kind of catapulted in the way they finished the first half, and it was obviously a big factor in the way that they ended up winning this game.
Yeah, we talked about FSU's body language at about 14-0, you, Brandon, and I, and it was pretty obvious. I thought Florida State was ready to play too.
Yeah.
Well, they got hammered right out of the gate. They're going to start tearing stuff down again here. I don't think they're tearing it down today.
Yeah.
So for those of you who complain about the racket in the background, there's no practice tomorrow. The team's off, so I don't think they're going to tear anything down.
No complaints today, guys. Not hearing that stuff.
Maybe not.
Besides the guy doing something.
It sounds like a plane's taking off back.
It's unavoidable in here.
The readiness, this is a really, really important thing because readiness hasn't been there all year.
Yeah, no, it hasn't.
You know, every game all year. And I go back to Notre Dame when Caleb said that they did not take Notre Dame seriously. They took them lightly because they lost to Boston College. Well, of course, without the other side of that is they also beat Kentucky, which had just waxed Carolina 10 or 12 days earlier. That's why the season is filled with lessons. That's why the NCAA tournament is not played in November. That's why it's played in March, and that's why games start in November, because a team has to accumulate knowledge. They have to gain chemistry, which we're seeing. Caleb and Brady Manick got some chemistry going right now. Brady also has great chemistry with Armando, and they learn lessons over the course of the season. This was a young team when the season began because these were a lot of kids who only had a COVID year last year, and it wasn't a typical year. They didn't have the same kind of time with Roy that previous teams did. So a lot of stuff they're learning this year. One of the things is readiness and also the short-term memory that Caleb spoke about today. And I asked Hubert about, you know, you guys were waxed on this floor a week ago by Duke. And sometimes a game like that can linger, and I do think it lingered a little bit early in Clemson.
Yeah, I think so too.
But maybe it's also just a matter that they just didn't play that great early against Clemson, but they got it going. If you don't come ready to play, you don't suddenly start playing well because it just happens. It's in there somewhere. That doesn't mean you're going to look pretty early in a game if you're ready to play. Sometimes it just takes a while before things start clicking. That's what happened at Clemson. Hubert said it's because he's positive. So I asked him, I said, is this the short memory thing, is this something you're fostering? Or has it become part of who the team is? Because they have shown that lately. You know, they had that terrible week at Coral Gables and Winston-Salem, and then they were off 4 wins in a row. They responded even to Connecticut. They responded to Kentucky. They responded to really terrible, terrible games by picking up some wins. They haven't allowed things to beat them. You could say maybe Coral Gables lasted at Winston-Salem. I won't, because I thought they were ready to play that night. They just got beaten by a team that played extremely well that night. And then the Heels didn't handle that push that Wake made. Today, the readiness was there. And this was a dangerous game. Because these kids understand that Florida State's one of the best programs in this conference, has been for a while. Leonard Hamilton belongs in the Hall of Fame. The man's had 2 seeds at Miami and Florida State. Enough said, right?
That's all you need.
And they've been one of the 4 winningest programs in the ACC the last 12 years or so. They had a lot of injuries, but they still have dudes. Raekwon Evans is a guy everybody would take. Caleb Mills is a guy everybody would take. Matthew Cleveland's someone Carolina recruited. Cameron Fletcher, who started at Kentucky, Carolina recruited him as well. So they have talent on that team, and they have bodies, and they're going to defend, and they have a great culture. So Carolina had to be ready for that, and I think they were. They respected Florida State today. They disregarded the 5-game losing streak and all the injuries. They came out and played that jersey. They came out and played a team that has beaten them at times in the past. They beat them twice last year, and they were ready to play. To me, that's a sign of growth. People are going to say, Florida State stinks, and they may close out the season not winning games, okay? But I think you got to look at this from a Carolina standpoint, that these guys were ready to play. They took FSU seriously, and every time they do that and they have a result like this, it gets more etched into who they are, that this is the way to approach games. And beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and don't leave any mystery to it. At home, there hadn't been a lot of mystery in a lot of these games. They handled Georgia Tech, they handled Virginia, they handled NC State, they handled these guys here today, and even when they didn't play great against BC and Virginia Tech, they still won those games.
Yeah, they still found a way to win, yeah. Absolutely, and that's kind of a caveat to what I want to talk about in the second thing, continue to talk about is Carolina. In terms of the bench, I thought the bench production is something that really stepped up for the Tar Heels today as well. I know you look at it, and credit to, I mean, you got to factor this in too. It's not like Carolina has a ton of guys available to come off the bench anyway. With some of, Dawson Garcia being out, Anthony Harris, that really cuts into it. But 22 bench points for the Tar Heels today. You saw Dontrez Styles with a season high for himself. Kerwin Walton shot the ball really well again, 9 points for him. I believe he had 7 down in Clemson as well. So you're starting to see some of the, Puff Johnson giving him good minutes. I know McCoy didn't play a ton, but he comes in and gives him a little bit. So I think Dontrez Styles, again, coming in early like he did that as well against Clemson, was another positive for him. He seems to be gaining a little bit more confidence, and it seems like Hubert's trusting in him a little bit more to put him out there when it matters a little bit. I know this game was a little bit different, obviously, because of the way it went down. 18-0, 49-15. At one point, Carolina's got over 60 points in the first half, so there was more availability to put guys in who maybe haven't played as much, because you're not. It's the game was essentially, over early on. So I know that played a factor, but you're starting to see Carolina get a little bit more production. Kerwin Walton as well. Totally forgot to. I did mention him. Sorry. Got tons of stuff running through my head. But overall, Carolina playing better on the bench, and that's only a positive for this team, because that has been a criticism of this team and of the coaching staff not using it more. But we have seen that a little bit more, and it's it is good that they're actually getting some production from it.
Well, let's be honest. They've had big margins in the first half before, and Hubert wasn't
going to the bench.
So,
and that's been a criticism of mine at times.
It has of a lot of people, but I've also tried to tell people, there's a standard. And you've got to be able to defend at a certain level. You've got to be able to do other things at a certain level to earn your playing time. You're just going to put them in the game just for the sake of putting them in the game. None of us are at practice. We've been to one practice. Okay?
Yeah, that
was a long time ago.
And
at this point, there was very little we could take from that practice and equate it to anything that we see now.
Yeah.
He wants to win. Hubert's a competitor. If he thinks that playing those guys 10 or 12 minutes each, a la Roy Williams style, is going to help them win games, and he'll do it. Brady Manick dragging up and down the court sometimes. RJ sometimes dragging up and down the court sometimes. And he's going to put him in there. I think what's important about this week is he went to the bench in the first half against Clemson in a tight game. Dontrez played 4 or 5 minutes in the first half there. Dontrez got on the court. He was the first sub tonight.
Yeah, I think it was around like the 14 or 12 minute mark.
First sub.
Like
so that to me is a sign that, okay, what Hubert has asked him to do and said, here's the things you need to do. You got a little list, okay? Do these things, and you're going to start getting more playing time. I don't know how that conversation would have transpired. I did ask Dontrez today, and he just basically said, look, I got to play harder, got to play better, that kind of thing, play with more confidence, more energy, all that kind of stuff. Kids say a lot of those things, but clearly there was something communicated to him that he needed to do more of and do more consistently in order to earn these minutes. He's out there now. Kerwin has actually looked like Kerwin from last year this week. If you think about his production per minutes played, he was at 15 minutes at Clemson, 16 today. And remember, the production there was in the first half today. In a blowout game, you're going to get some bench production. But they had 13 points in the first half. And Kerwin, using a dribble.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about
We have tweeted some videos of Kerwin working out after games. And he's had someone here that has been working with him, a mentor of sorts. And they have a couple times have gone through the full gamut of what I would consider June and July drills.
I mean, he's out here for an hour.
All the ball handling. I mean, sometimes it's just straight ball handling for like an hour. It's very challenging stuff. In about a 3-possession stretch, he had a left-hand drive to the lane where he got to the bucket, and another time he had a crossover. We didn't see either of those last year.
No, he didn't have that.
And we saw it here. So I think his confidence is probably higher than it's been any time since when he scored 14 points at Charleston. When Hubert drew up a play for him for a 3 against Charleston and got a big bucket. His confidence is probably higher than it's been since then. Dontrez's confidence is clearly higher than it's been since then. I think Puff never had the confidence issues, but he hit a 3 again today, and he just plays with some balance and some spirit. I think Hubert trusted him against Clemson to put him in with 3.1 seconds left. And I think Justin's still trying to figure some things out, but if they're not having to rely on him as much, or they're getting something from the other guys, and Hubert's starting to gain a little more confidence that a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, combined with a TV timeout, he could get Brady a 6 or 7 minute rest. He can get RJ a 6 or 7 minute rest. That's important moving forward.
Absolutely.
Because they know who they are. They're not going to have 2 guys that were part of the rotation before, one of whom was a starter. This is who they are. And if they can slowly add a couple of these pieces a little bit more into things, this will be a better team come March. There's still 6 games left in the regular season. And then you have the ACC tournament. So there's plenty of time to kind of get these guys hitting some form of a stride and becoming consistent off the bench, where Hubert can go into the postseason saying, you know what, we've got more weapons than just the starting 5.
Yeah, and that'll be huge for this team, especially with the couple of guys that they've lost this year. I think if you can get positive bench production from some of those younger guys, less experienced guys, or guys like Kerwin, like we've talked about,
I think it uplifts the team.
It does.
I think the starters, look, everybody wants to play 40 minutes, right? But go ahead and try to play 40 minutes and see what it's like, especially with what they're going to be dealing with coming down the road here, okay? So the starters want to have a break. They want to be able to be fresh. They want to be sharp at the end of games. And when bench guys come in, and when Kerwin, the bench is right here during games. When Kerwin scores, whole bench is up.
Oh, yeah.
So whoever he goes in for, that guy's up, and it lifts everybody. I think they feel better about their ability to navigate difficult situations when they know, hey, when we go to the bench, we're going to get something. If it's not scoring, we're still going to get decent defense. We're going to get some rebound. Dontrez had 2 rebounds in the first half today. He's got a body. He's explosive. He's a guy that could sort of wreak a little havoc out there. Imagine when the mind and body are completely in concert, when he finally gets that going. He's a guy that's going to do some intangibles for him. I can see a scenario sometime in March, in the middle of March, where Dontrez gets 6 or 7 minutes in the first half of a postseason game, and it lifts the team up.
Yeah, it makes an impact.
Because he's trending in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about, like we always do to wrap this one up, what this means for the Tar Heels. You've obviously got Pittsburgh coming up here midweek. Then you Carolina traveling to Blacksburg to face Virginia Tech next weekend as well. So kind of in that routine now in February with 1 weekday game, 1 weekend game in ACC play. Based on the opponents that Carolina has coming up, you'd expect them to beat Pittsburgh. Blacksburg is always a tough place for Carolina to play as a struggling Virginia Tech team. But that's going to be a tough game for the Tar Heels. But based on what Carolina's done this season, those are 2 games you'd probably expect them to win. When it comes to a theme for Carolina has been beating the teams they're supposed to, barring maybe a couple. But AJ, what does this win mean for the Tar Heels? Because obviously, like, they've bounced back from the Duke game, which was just a week ago. It's been a positive week for Carolina. Once again, found a way to win down in Clemson, close game, and then you blow out a really, really injury-ravaged and struggling, I think, at 6 straight losses for Florida State now. What does this mean for the Tar Heels?
Well, they needed to win, number 1.
Absolutely, yeah.
They need to further distance themselves from Duke, I guess, because I think that the more, I've said before, this team just needs to win games.
So, yeah, they have to.
They can't help the fact that FSU's injury ravaged. They can't help the fact that Pitt is what Pitt is, although Pitt did win at FSU the other night. Virginia Tech's actually been creeping toward the tournament line. The Hokies have been playing better. It's going to be a very challenging game. So what this means is the messages that they're getting from Hubert are being applied more and more.
Resonating a little more, yeah.
They didn't handle being punched against Duke. And Hubert said tonight, hey, we really respond to negativity well. I think it's shown that it takes them the next day to respond.
Yeah.
They haven't responded in-game very well. That's the next thing they're going to have to do. And I think in a way, Clemson could qualify as that. Down 19-8, first 10 minutes of the game. They're coming off the loss to Duke, and they did respond. So maybe that's an example of them changing that a little bit. But to me, this just means that they're at 18 wins. They're 1 win closer to getting into the NCAA tournament. I think this team had a little extra skip. Michigan game turned into a Q1 game. They need Michigan to keep winning. They need Furman to win. They need App State to win. They need College of Charleston to win a bunch of games and make that a Q2 game on the road. They need that kind of stuff because the league doesn't give them a lot of opportunities to help themselves, give them high-value wins. They got one next Saturday, and they have one 2 Saturdays after that when they go to Duke. And it'll be interesting to see what Syracuse is like by the time they come. If they keep winning, that could be a Q2 game and a game that could help them a little bit as well. So to me, this means that the whole team was clicking. They were all at the same point today. It wasn't like 3 guys were fantastic and 2 guys were straggling along. I thought Leakey was fantastic.
I thought he was too, all around,
He's been
all over
really
the court,
good lately. You know, he hustled after that one ball when no one else did, and that was a great senior moment there, right? Leakey's not a very vocal guy, but you can lead by example, especially when you're a senior and you're the 5th scorer among those guys, and it's a 20-point game and you're going out there after that ball like that. Caleb shaking off a terrible shooting slump, coming out here and having a big shooting game. Doesn't matter that it was in a lopsided game.
Yeah.
He needed to see the ball go through the basket. He had a career-high 6 threes. He also had 6 assists today.
Yep.
As I said, his chemistry with Brady is something we're seeing more and more of. And I just think overall the fact that they played well defensively too. FSU was 0 for its first 9. In fact, here's a great stat. Carolina in the first half averaged 1.77 points per possession, okay? 62 points on 40 possessions is insane, right? FSU was at 0.69 points per possession. Steve Kirshner, the SID here at Carolina, is phenomenal. There's a Hall of Fame for SID.
Yeah, he's in it.
There is an SID Hall of Fame. He's got to go in.
He'll be in it.
He pointed out after the game, he doesn't remember seeing a full 1-point differential in the first half. Neither do I.
No.
So it was a little bit more than full 1 point. That's how dominant the Tar Heels were in every aspect of the game. Fast break points. They got out in open court and transition. I think they had 18 fast break points in the first half. So
some we haven't seen a lot.
They did all the things well. So again, we've talked a lot about all the examples they have on film over here. Here's what you don't. Here's what you don't want to do because you've seen it doesn't work. And over here, here's what you want to do because you've seen that it works.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intel. What are they? 25 games in.
Yep.
They know what to do now. They know what it requires. They know they can do these things. Now the test will be readiness for Pitt. It'll be easier to take them lightly than it would be FSU because of the front of the jersey. But they got to be ready for that game. And if they are ready for Pitt and they come out the same kind of verve they had here today, that is another small sign of growth.
Absolutely.
You don't stop growing.
No.
Dean Smith used to say teams keep improving right up to the time they're eliminated in the NCAA tournament. That's the way a team should be. I think this team is doing that.
Yeah.
They don't always show it.
No.
They kind of wobble at times, but I think that they're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, AJ. It's a good place to wrap this one up. Carolina getting the 94-74 victory over Florida State here on this court right behind us. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your post-game coverage from today's game, for all your coverage leading up to the Pittsburgh game coming up here next week as well. We'll obviously be here for that one too, as it's in Chapel Hill. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as always so you know every single time we upload. We're not far off from 10K, AJ. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
10K subscribers before the season ends. That's
the
what
Jacob Turner 10K countdown.
I want it, man.
That's the moniker.
We're gonna get that 10K. I think we're at like 9.3 now, about 9,300.
If you're tired of hearing Jacob talk about getting close to 10K, get all your friends to subscribe, even if they don't care about sports.
Yeah, if you're watching this, you aren't.
That way, I don't have to hear it anymore either.
Exactly. I know he's probably tired of hearing it. Hey, we're going for that 10K. We got to get double digits, man. That's cool. Before the season ends, too. I don't want it during the summer. I want it before the season ends. So make sure you're subscribing, sharing our channel with everybody you know, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.